All right, so talk to me about trauma. I've seen people in your own seminars that have been through things that are so traumatic, it's almost hard to believe that a human can put another human through something like that, but they do. How does somebody like that, who is going to have a very hardwired sense of their own identity, of that they're broken in some fundamental way, that there's no way beyond that identity, and that's creating what I call a frame of reference. So it's the distortion you were talking earlier about, we distort things. It's creating that distorted funhouse mirror that they're viewing their world through. How do you, because I know somebody that's been through something like that, when they hear all this, it just sounds too facile. It's too easy. You're just making it sound so simple.
Yeah.
What's the process for overcoming that trauma?
Well, first, people get vested in their trauma. People get vested in their pain. If you want to know the largest drug on the planet, it's not cocaine. It's not heroin. It's not pot. It's not, some prescription drug. The biggest, drug on the planet is problems. Because everyone has a deep fear. Everyone. And the deepest fears we have are two. One is that we're not enough. We're not smart enough, young enough, rich enough, pretty enough, funny enough, something enough. And if we're not enough, it's the deepest fear we have, which is we won't be loved. And love is the oxygen of the soul. So, a baby is, if they're not physically, kinesthetically loved, they develop what's called failure to thrive syndrome. That's how desperate our nervous system is for love. So human beings, when they think, oh my God, if I fail at this, it'll look like I'm not enough and I won't be worthy of love, they tend to come up with a reason why that's either not their fault, it's something that was done to me. I've got ADHD, I was born with it, I was raped, I was whatever. And they might even tell the truth. Someone may have really raped them. It's a horrible situation. But other people have raped and they've gotten through it and they're on the other side of it. This person hasn't, because it becomes their reason for not being where they want to be in their life. And so the bottom line is, a mother can lose her daughter or son through a drunk driver and spend the rest of their life in pain. And another one creates MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, and does something about it and feels a sense of freedom and a sense of serving that child and a sense of higher purpose in what they're doing. So it's not the problem. It's not the trauma. It's finding what they value more than the problem. And everyone has a place where there's something they value more than their trauma. Some people gather trauma because they realize, I've been so traumatized, loss of this child, that my other child feels completely unloved. And they realize, I'm losing that love. I'm losing that child if I don't get my shit together, right? They need a higher level of what's called leverage. Leverage is what makes change a must, not a should. As long as it's a should, you'll have your story. And your story could be a true story. And you'll tell your story and share your story with yourself or other people or both. And you stay stuck. But trauma is, it is not, it's a bruise. It's not a tattoo. Right? Any bruise can be healed, but not unless you're vested in healing it. And what a lot of people do, I remember when I was diagnosed with a tumor in my brain, I've seen this happen so much that I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even tell my spouse at the time, the first day. I was trying to process it because I didn't want people to start treating me differently. And so the only person who knew for the first day or two was my assistant, because she had talked to the doctor. So before I'd even been able to tell my spouse at the time, all of a sudden, everyone treated me like I was indestructible. I taught people to do that. It's like, because I want to help everybody. So there was no. It's like, I'll do whatever it takes, right? So it was inhuman at the time. And suddenly my assistant started saying, we shouldn't book that right now. And we shouldn't do this right now. And I started getting love and attention and connection for having this problem. And I was like, whoa. I'm not going to go down that slippery slope. But that takes a really conscious mind to do it. And lucky for me, I've had a chance to deal with millions of people, so I see these patterns all the time. But most people, their problem is their drug. It's the drug against the fear that I'm not enough and I won't be loved. Even if they go, no, it's me, I'm so messed up, what they're really saying is, reassure me, love me. They're wanting that connection through their problem. So you got to decide there's something you value more than your problem. When you decide that, you can make it happen. But most people aren't going to do that unless they get in an environment where they see that happening. And then, in our environments, I have one of my nights, A Date with Destiny, is called, suicide night. And it's not to be humorous. It's just in any room with several thousand people, in my case, 5,000 or 10,000 people, there's always at least a dozen people that are suicidal. And I'm not going to have been doing it for, 40 years. And, it doesn't matter who it is. I did one through Zoom last year, to give you an idea, which is a little scary because when they're in my presence, I know they're not going anywhere I can handle it. But in Zoom, they could just close the computer and then what the hell happens, right? If they got freaked out in the middle. I have a partner in this process, Chloe Madonis, who's, every 5 years, psychiatrists and psychologists around the world gather and pick the top 10 people representing their field. And for the last 30 years, she's been in the top 10. So she's made films of all my work. And now therapists get continuing education credits to continue to certify themselves by studying these. So we're training people to do this, so it's not just happening in my seminars or Date with Destiny.
I'm assuming this comes back to the triangle, but what are you looking for? Like, do you have to first understand the story that they're telling themselves to help them unwind that? Like, when you're trying to dig into that, what are you looking for to leverage, to narrow the walls, to get them moving in a direction?
I'm listening for something that they value more than their pain, or I'm trying to dig to find where that is. But I first try to figure out, like, if you think we all have a life story, right? Some people's life is a warning, some people's life is an example. If your life's a warning, it still can become an example if you're alive, right? You have that choice. That's the greatest story of all time, the comeback story, right? So what I'm looking for is what's their story? And the story is driven by, number one, what's their desire? If you go to a movie, read a book, in the first few minutes, the main character, you'll discover what their desire is. Is it to merge with God? Is it to find a great relationship and have children? Is it to free themselves from being enslaved? Whatever it is, there's a driving desire. And then there's always, as soon as you have a desire, there's a problem, because otherwise you'd have your desire. And the problem usually is character piece is missing within yourself. You're being selfish. You're not giving enough. You're not creative enough. You're not trusting enough, something enough. And then as you go through the story of a person's life, what happens is they come up with a plan. And there's always, the phrase, if you want to make God laugh, tell her your plans, right? So it's like the plan doesn't work. You end up having battles, and the battles invariably are with external enemies, with intimate enemies. Like, who can hurt you more? The person you don't know or the person you love who seems to have betrayed you? And then there's the internal enemy, the conflicts within yourself. And as you fight through those battles, if you continue to grow, you come to a point where you have insights. You see what the real truth is. It isn't somebody else, it's me. This is what needs to shift. And if you see that and act on it, kind of jump through the opening, so to speak, then life's never the same again, or life is happily ever after, as it says in every story, right? Because you've made a shift in the core values and beliefs and emotions that are driving your life. So I look at it that way. I'm looking to see what's their story. And you want to change your life, change your story. Are they playing the position of the pawn? Are they the position of the king? Are they court jester, right? Are they the martyr? What is the role they're playing? What's the story they're telling themselves? And then I dig for something they value more. So for example, the woman that was going to take her life and already given up all her stuff, in a few seconds of talking with her, she mentioned something about her father who had just died. And so I asked her a little bit about her father. Both her father and mother had just died. She'd gone through sexual abuse, and her brothers and sisters didn't want to talk about it. And as a result, they were estranged from her. And so she felt she had no friends, no anything, suffering financially and in a lot of physical pain. So all these things happening at once, people say, guess what? Dying would be easier than living, which is not true. But if you believe it, you try to take your life. So as I dug in about her father, he grew up in the Depression, and he was extraordinary. And I could just see the respect and love for her father. So as I had her tell me stories, and I said, well, how did he do that during that time when he had no money and people were jumping out of buildings? And I go deeper and deeper, and it's like, well, he just valued this, and he learned from his father, and he never forgot these certain core lessons. And I said, that's interesting. And I said, and what core lessons did you get from your father? And gradually I started to find where the resources were. Why is she not going to kill herself? What's the leverage that I can use to get her to shift? And then you can watch this emotional transformation happen over about 45 minutes until it was so unbelievably emotional and complete. At the end, it's like, no, I'm never going to take my life. I can't take my life. I'm not taking my life. And she starts to rebuild things. So
really fast, I want to push in on that. So was it that what you were uncovering is that through her dad, she could see meaningful values that she already resonated with, and then it was about getting her to transpose those values from you're putting them on your dad, but you can value those same things in yourself. Now you have a chance to live up to those values, which will help you change your story and your sense of identity and that's going to give you the meaning and purpose to pull out?
That's the intellectual description of it. The emotional description of it, and which would not have moved her. That's the mechanics. What moved her is, I can't let my father down. He did let his father down the worst time. I can't let my father down. That's what I took her to. Right. And then building a compelling future, what she can build, what she can do, what she does have the ability to make happen, what she has broken through, like tapping into the resources she deleted inside of herself and reactivating them so she feels alive again inside herself. Although all the other things you described are the structural, intellectual impact of what actually happens, but that's not what changes somebody. It all comes from emotion. We are emotional creatures. We all study, like you're talking about it using your brain. You're such a smart person. I love you dearly. And you analyze it all, but your effing brain isn't going to do shit. What's going to do it is enough emotion. Well, emotion is the power. Emotion is what starts wars. It's what ends wars. Emotion is what gets you married. Emotion is where kids comes from. Divorce is where emotion comes from. Everything that you can think of a major change in humanity, from the most extreme of war to the most gentle of love, all come from human emotion. So it's the mix of emotion. It's like knowing what you want and having the right fuel to get there. And if the fuel has no combustion, you're just bored, you're not going anywhere. If the fuel is total trauma and I'm overwhelmed, you just blow up and go nowhere. There's that delicate balance. And I've learned over the years how to help people find that balance.